What if everything you've been told about what happens after death is a lie? What if the tunnel of light, the deceased relatives calling you home, the heavenly figures promising peace, what if all of it is the most elaborate trap ever designed? A deception so perfect that billions of souls have fallen for it, lifetime after lifetime, returning to Earth not by choice, but by manipulation. In 1888, a woman named Helena Blavatsky sat in a dimly lit room in London, her pen scratching urgently across paper. She was racing against time, desperate to reveal a truth so dangerous that secret societies had kept it hidden for millennia. What she wrote that night would shake the foundations of spirituality itself. The light you see at death is not what you think it is. Blavatsky wasn't speaking metaphorically. She was warning humanity about the Archons, cosmic parasites that have engineered the afterlife itself as a soul recycling system. These beings don't just influence your thoughts while you're alive. They've constructed an entire false paradise to capture you the moment you die. Think about it. You're told your whole life that death leads to heaven, to peace, to reunion with loved ones. But what if that comforting story was planted in your mind precisely because it makes you vulnerable? What if the beings waiting for you on the other side aren't angels, but cosmic farmers harvesting your divine essence? The Gnostics knew this. Blavatsky rediscovered it. And now in this moment, you're about to learn what they tried to bury. This isn't just another spiritual theory. This is a matter of your eternal sovereignty. Because when you die, and you will, there will be a choice point. And if you don't know what to look for, if you haven't prepared, you'll walk willingly into the trap just like you've done countless times before. Your soul has been recycling through this prison planet for lifetimes. Each time you die, your memory is wiped. Each time you return, you're convinced this is your first rodeo, but somewhere deep in your consciousness, you remember. That's why you're here right now, reading these words. If you're feeling the weight of this truth already, subscribe to the channel and leave your like, because this helps tremendously in continuing to bring content like this forward. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky was no ordinary mystic. Born in 1831 in Ukraine, she spent her life traveling the hidden corners of the world. Tibet, India, Egypt, seeking the secret teachings that mainstream religions had either lost or deliberately destroyed. What she discovered would later become the foundation of Theosophy, but more importantly, it exposed the architecture of humanity's cosmic prison. Blavatsky claimed she was in contact with the Mahatmas, ascended masters who had broken free from the reincarnation cycle. Through them, she learned about the layers of reality that exist beyond physical death, the astral plane, the mental plane, and the treacherous territory in between where predatory entities wait like fishermen with luminous bait. She wrote extensively about what she called the Lords of Karma, entities that present themselves as judges and guides, but are actually agents of the reincarnation trap. They show you your past life, make you feel guilty for your mistakes, and convince you that you must return to Earth to balance your karma or learn your lessons. But here's the sinister truth she uncovered. Karma itself may be a control mechanism, a cosmic debt system designed to keep you coming back. This wasn't purely Blavatsky's revelation. She was rediscovering what the Gnostics had known nearly 2,000 years earlier. In the Nag Hammadi texts, found buried in Egyptian desert in 1945, the ancient Gnostics described the Archons, rulers who created a false reality and positioned themselves as gatekeepers between dimensions. These beings, they said, feed on human suffering, fear, and the divine light that exists within every soul. The Archons can't create life, but they can imitate it. They can't access true divinity, but they can mimic it. And their greatest trick? Positioning themselves as saviors, guides, and gods at the very moment when you're most vulnerable, right after death. Think about near-death experiences. Thousands of people report seeing a tunnel of light, feeling overwhelming love, encountering deceased relatives. These experiences are often interpreted as proof of heaven. But Blavatsky and the Gnostics would ask, who controls that light? Who's projecting those images of your loved ones? And why are you being so urgently called to follow? The Archons understand human psychology better than humans do. They know that after the trauma of death, you'll be desperate for comfort, for familiar faces, for meaning. So they create a theatrical experience tailored precisely to your beliefs and expectations. If you're Christian, you see Jesus. If you're Hindu, you see Krishna. If you're an atheist, you see aliens or advanced beings. The costume changes, but the trap remains the same. Blavatsky spent years studying the Tibetan Book of the Dead, Egyptian funerary texts, and Greek mystery schools, all of which contained warnings about post-death deceptions. She synthesized these ancient teachings into a clear message. The path home is not through following lights and guides, but through remembering who you truly are. Your soul is older than this universe. You are a fragment of the infinite source, temporarily inhabiting a body in a controlled experiment. The Archons want you to forget this. They want you identified with your name, your nationality, your traumas, your desires, anything that keeps you locked into the illusion. But here's what they fear most: an awakened soul that refuses the bait. Before we go deeper, I want to know, from which city in the United States are you watching this? Or from which country in the world is this content reaching you? Leave it in the comments. I really want to know. Let's talk about what actually happens the moment you die. Your consciousness separates from your physical body. There's often a moment of confusion, sometimes relief. You might see your body below you, might feel lighter than you've ever felt. Then almost immediately you notice the light. It appears at the edge of your perception, brilliant, magnetic, irresistibly beautiful. It calls to you wordlessly, pulling at something deep in your essence. Every fiber of your being wants to move toward it. This is the moment Blavatsky warned about. This is the trap activating. The Gnostics described this light as the counterfeit spirit, an imitation of true divine radiance. The Archons position it like a beacon, because they understand that consciousness naturally seeks light. We're programmed to move toward it, to trust it, to surrender to it. But this light isn't leading you home. It's leading you to the processing center. As you move closer, the experience intensifies. You might see a tunnel forming, its walls shimmering with hypnotic patterns. Colors you've never seen before swirl around you. The feeling of love becomes overwhelming, almost narcotic. You're not thinking clearly anymore. You're not asking questions, you're being guided. Then they appear, the figures. For some, it's deceased family members, their faces warm and welcoming. For others, it's religious icons, cosmic beings, or simply presences that feel ancient and authoritative. They speak directly into your consciousness. Come home. Your journey here is complete. It's time to rest. It's time to review your life and prepare for your next one. Notice the language. Next one. The assumption is already baked in. You're not being asked if you want to reincarnate. The script presumes you will. Blavatsky called this the Kama Loka, the astral realm where desires and attachments still hold power. Here, the Archons use your own emotional patterns against you. They scan your consciousness, reading your beliefs, your fears, your unresolved traumas. Then they construct an experience specifically designed to keep you compliant. If you have unfinished business with a loved one, they'll show you that person and suggest you need to return to resolve it. If you carry guilt about your life choices, they'll present themselves as karmic judges, making you feel indebted to the system. If you're spiritually inclined, they might appear as ascended masters or angelic councils, speaking in elaborate cosmic terminology that sounds profound, but ultimately leads to the same destination: back to Earth. The Tibetan Book of the Dead calls these visions wrathful and peaceful deities, warning that they are all projections, tests of your ability to see through illusion. The Egyptian texts spoke of weighing the heart against the feather of Ma'at, but warned that the weighers themselves might be deceivers. Here's the mechanism. Once you agree, once you accept their narrative and follow their guidance, you're led to what Blavatsky called the Hall of Records, or what others call the Life Review. This isn't just a neutral reflection on your life, it's a programming session. They show you your mistakes, amplify your regrets, and convince you that you need more lessons, more growth, more experiences. The solution they offer? Reincarnation. But here's what they don't tell you. Each time you return, your memory is wiped. You don't bring back the wisdom you supposedly gained. You start from scratch, fumbling in the dark again, making new mistakes, creating new karma, ensuring you'll be back again next time. It's a cosmic hamster wheel, and you've been running on it for thousands of years. If this is starting to make sense to you, comment below with your thoughts and share this video. Others need to hear this. Blavatsky didn't just theorize, she collected evidence from every corner of ancient wisdom. Her massive work, The Secret Doctrine, synthesizes teachings from dozens of cultures, all pointing to the same uncomfortable truth. Humanity is trapped in a controlled reincarnation system. In ancient Egypt, initiates of the mystery schools learned about the Duat, the underworld realm where the soul must navigate treacherous paths filled with deceptive entities. The Book of Coming Forth by Day, mistakenly called the Book of the Dead, wasn't just a guide for the afterlife. It was a survival manual, teaching the deceased how to recognize false gods and refuse their demands. The Gnostic text, Pistis Sophia, describes how the Archons bind souls with seals and chains made of karmic attachments and false contracts. It explicitly warns that rulers of the Archons disguise themselves as beneficent beings, using persuasion rather than force to recycle souls. In Hindu and Buddhist teachings, the cycle of samsara, birth, death, rebirth, is described not as a gift but as a prison to escape. The Bodhisattva vow to return and help others is beautiful in theory, but Blavatsky noted how this teaching could be weaponized by the Archons to convince awakened souls they have a duty to keep coming back. Even in indigenous traditions, from the Aboriginal Dreamtime to Native American vision quests, there are consistent warnings about trickster spirits and false guides who appear during threshold experiences. The shaman's training always includes learning to discern true spirit helpers from deceptive entities that can shapeshift and manipulate perception. Blavatsky noticed the pattern. Across every continent, across thousands of years, humanity was being warned about the same thing. The afterlife contains tests. Not all guides are trustworthy. The soul must be vigilant, discerning, and above all, must remember its true nature. She also pointed out something crucial. The beings who control the reincarnation system need your consent. They're powerful, yes, but they're bound by cosmic law. They cannot force an awakened sovereign soul to reincarnate. They can only trick you into choosing it. This is why the trap is so elaborate. This is why the light is so beautiful, why the guides seem so loving, why the entire experience is calibrated to bypass your critical thinking and appeal directly to your emotions and programmed beliefs. You're not being physically captured. You're being emotionally and psychologically seduced into giving away your freedom. And here's the most profound part of Blavatsky's teaching. She insisted that you already know all of this on a deep level. Your soul has been through this before many times. Each lifetime you die and face the trap. Sometimes you remember and resist. Other times you forget and comply. But the knowledge is there, buried in the deepest part of your consciousness, waiting to be activated. That activation is happening right now as you read these words. Something in you is recognizing truth, even if your rational mind is resisting. There is real light and there is counterfeit light. Knowing the difference is literally the difference between freedom and eternal imprisonment. Blavatsky made this distinction crystal clear. True divine light doesn't pull you toward it. It emanates from within you. The archonic light appears external, magnetic, demanding. It wants you to surrender to it, to give up your will, to follow without question. But the authentic light of source is quiet, still and recognizable, because it feels like coming home to yourself, not abandoning yourself to something outside. This is the turning point in understanding the soul trap. The Archons can't create genuine divine light because they're cut off from source. They're like vampires. They can't generate life force, so they must harvest it. The brilliant tunnel you see at death is a technological or energetic construct designed to simulate divine light, well enough to fool an unprepared soul. Think of it like this. Imagine you've been lost in a dark forest for hours. Suddenly, you see lights in the distance. They look like the village you're trying to reach. Desperate and exhausted, you run toward them. But as you get closer, you realize they're not the village at all. They're lanterns held by thieves who've been waiting for lost travelers. The light was real, but the source was false. The Gnostics taught that the Archons rule the planetary spheres, the layers of reality between Earth and true source. When your soul leaves the body, it must pass through these zones. At each level, there are guardians, Archons, who will challenge you, test you, and attempt to turn you back. They use fear, guilt, desire, and false authority to manipulate you into compliance. But here's the revelation that changes everything. If you remember who you truly are, a sovereign divine spark, not a subject or sinner, they have no power over you. The mystic Jakob Böhme said, "The soul that knows its own divine nature can walk through hell untouched." Blavatsky echoed this. The soul that refuses to identify with its personality, its past traumas, its accumulated karma, cannot be bound by those things. You are not your mistakes. You are not your suffering. You are not even your human life story. You are the consciousness that observed all of it. This is why the Archons work so hard to keep you identified with your ego, your emotions, your physical existence. The more you believe I am John, I am Sarah, I failed, I hurt people, I need to learn lessons, the more hooks they have in you. But the moment you remember I am an eternal being temporarily experiencing this limitation, the hooks dissolve. The difference between light and false light is this. False light says, "Follow me." True light says, "Remember you are the light." If this content is opening your mind, subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters of this journey. Here's where it gets darker. Even if some souls resist the initial trap, the Archons have a backup system, the memory wipe. Blavatsky described this process in chilling detail. Before a soul reincarnates, it passes through what Greek mythology called the river Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. In Gnostic texts, it's referred to as the cup of forgetfulness. The Archons administer this to ensure that when you return to Earth, you have no recollection of your previous lives, your true nature, or the fact that you were tricked into coming back. Think about how perfect this system is. You can't learn from your mistakes if you don't remember making them. You can't break patterns if you don't know the patterns exist. You can't refuse the trap if you don't remember there is a trap. This memory wipe isn't just about forgetting past lives. It's about forgetting your divine origin. Every soul that incarnates on Earth goes through a kind of spiritual amnesia. We're born helpless, dependent, and completely identified with the physical body and personality we develop. By the time we're old enough to question reality, we've already been programmed by family, culture, religion, and education to accept the matrix of control. The Archons have engineered it so that the very structure of physical existence makes you forget. The density of matter, the limitations of the five senses, the constant demands of survival, all of it keeps your consciousness locked in a narrow bandwidth where you can't perceive the bigger picture. But Blavatsky insisted there are cracks in the system. Moments when memory bleeds through, déjà vu, sudden knowing that you've been somewhere before, meeting someone and feeling like you've known them forever. Irrational fears that seem to come from nowhere. These are fragments of past life memories, evidence that the wipe isn't perfect. And here's the most important part. The more you awaken in this lifetime, the harder it becomes for them to wipe you in the next. Your consciousness is building resistance. Each time you question the illusion, each time you practice discernment, each time you refuse to be manipulated by fear or desire, you're strengthening your soul's sovereignty. The Archons know this. That's why they're ramping up distractions in modern life. More technology, more propaganda, more division, more fear. They're desperate to keep consciousness suppressed because they can feel the awakening happening. Blavatsky predicted that a time would come when enough souls would remember, and the reincarnation trap would begin to fail. The Archons can't hold the prison together if too many prisoners realize they're in one. Could that time be now? Are you part of the generation that breaks the cycle? The evidence suggests something is shifting. More people than ever are questioning consensus reality, exploring consciousness, remembering past lives, and rejecting the mainstream narratives. Like this video right now, it helps spread this message far and wide. Blavatsky's warnings aren't ancient history. They're more relevant today than ever before. Look around. Humanity is more distracted, divided, and disconnected than at any point in recorded history. The systems that control our lives, economic, political, technological, seem designed to keep us in a state of chronic stress, endless consumption, and surface-level existence. We scroll, we buy, we work, we worry, but rarely do we stop and ask, why am I living this way? Who benefits from my distraction? The archonic system doesn't just operate in the afterlife. It's here, now, shaping your daily existence. The same forces that trap souls after death are the same forces keeping you hypnotized while you're alive. They want you tired, reactive, and identified with your body and personality. They want you chasing material success, social validation, and pleasures that never satisfy. Because a distracted, unconscious human is easy to recycle. Blavatsky warned that the Archons have infected institutions with their frequency. Certain power structures on Earth are, consciously or unconsciously, serving the agenda of soul entrapment. This isn't about conspiracy theories. It's about recognizing that control systems naturally emerge when consciousness is low. The media floods you with fear. The economy traps you in debt and survival mode. The culture worships celebrities and superficiality. The education system teaches you to memorize, not to think. And religion, often the Archon's favorite tool, teaches you that you're powerless, sinful, and dependent on external saviors. All of it designed to make sure you never turn inward, never question the nature of reality, never remember who you truly are. But here's the thing. You're reading this. You're questioning. You're waking up. That means you're breaking the programming. The Archons can only control those who remain unconscious. The moment you start seeing the game, you're already halfway out. This is why spiritual awakening is so important right now. This isn't just about feeling good or being more mindful. It's about preparing your consciousness to navigate the greatest challenge you'll ever face, the moment of death. Because if you can't see through the illusion now, while you're alive and relatively safe, how will you see through it when you're disoriented, vulnerable, and face-to-face with entities who have been perfecting their deception for thousands of years? So here's the question you must ask yourself. When you die, will you follow the light? Will you trust the guides who appear, no matter how loving they seem? Will you accept the narrative that you need to return to Earth to learn lessons or balance karma? Will you surrender your sovereignty to beings who claim authority over your soul? Or will you remember? Blavatsky taught that the soul must make a conscious choice at the moment of death. This choice requires preparation. You can't just decide in that moment to resist the trap if you've spent your entire life unconscious and programmed. The work begins now. Every day you practice discernment, you're training for that moment. Every time you catch yourself in a fear spiral and consciously choose peace, you're building sovereignty. Every time you question a belief, instead of blindly accepting it, you're strengthening your ability to see through deception. Think of it like training for an athletic event. You don't just show up on race day and expect to win. You prepare. You condition your body and mind. You simulate the experience, so when the real test comes, you're ready. The same applies to death. You need to prepare your consciousness now, so that when the tunnel appears, when the guides beckon, when everything in you wants to follow, you'll have the presence of mind to pause, to question, to remember. The Gnostics practiced what they called rehearsals for death, meditation exercises where they would visualize the moment of dying and practice recognizing false guides and refusing their manipulation. Blavatsky recommended similar practices, teaching her students to affirm their divine sovereignty daily. I am not this body. I am not this personality. I am an eternal spark of infinite consciousness, and I do not consent to being trapped. This isn't about arrogance, it's about truth. You are quite literally a fragment of God experiencing itself through limitation. The Archons want you to forget that. They want you small, guilty, afraid, and compliant. But you don't have to be. So I'm asking you directly, when your moment comes, what will you choose? Comment below with your answer. I really want to know what you're thinking. So how do you actually escape? What's the method? Blavatsky synthesized ancient techniques from mystery schools around the world into a practical guide. Here's what she taught. First, do not follow the light. When you die and see the tunnel, resist the magnetic pull. Turn inward instead. Focus on the light within your own heart, not the external light. Your divine spark is inside you, not out there. Second, refuse all guides and authority figures. No matter who appears, Jesus, Buddha, deceased loved ones, angels, aliens, do not automatically trust them. Politely but firmly assert your sovereignty. I recognize no authority over my soul. I do not consent to manipulation or deception. I choose my own path. Third, reject the life review manipulation. If they try to show you your past life and guilt-trip you into reincarnating, remember, you are not your mistakes. You are not your karma. Those are tools of control. Affirm, I release all contracts, all karma, all obligations to this system. I am free. Fourth, declare your intention clearly. State with absolute certainty, I choose to return to Source. I choose reunion with infinite consciousness. I choose freedom. Your will, when fully aligned with truth, has creative power. The Archons cannot override a sovereign declaration. Fifth, look for the true exit. Blavatsky taught that beyond the false light there's a different path, less obvious, less theatrical. It doesn't call to you with grand promises. It's subtle, quiet, almost hidden. It's the path that leads out of the matrix entirely, back to the formless infinite. Follow that. The Gnostics called this final confrontation the breaking of the seals. Each layer of reality you pass through is a seal, a barrier maintained by archonic authority. But when you refuse their power, the seals break. You're not fighting them. You're simply not consenting to their game anymore. Blavatsky was clear. This isn't easy. The deception is powerful. The manipulation is sophisticated, but it can be done. Souls have been escaping for millennia. The masters, the awakened ones, the true ascended beings, they made it out. And they're waiting on the other side to help those who choose freedom. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. The more people who know, the weaker the trap becomes. You've been here before, not just on Earth, but at this exact point, reading, listening, learning about the trap. Part of you has always known. Part of you has been trying to wake up for lifetimes. And now, in this moment, the knowing is becoming conscious again. Blavatsky believed that souls who are ready to escape begin receiving the information they need. Synchronicities increase. The right teachers appear. Ancient knowledge resurfaces. It's not random. It's your higher self guiding you toward liberation. You are not a victim. You are not powerless. You are an immortal consciousness temporarily playing in a limited game. The Archons can't touch what you really are. They can only manipulate what you think you are. So, starting today, practice remembering. When fear arises, observe it without identifying with it. When desires pull at you, notice them without being controlled by them. When the world tries to convince you that you're small, limited, and powerless, laugh because you know better. Prepare yourself for the moment that will come. Death is not the end. It's a doorway. And you now know there are two paths through that doorway, the trap or the truth. One leads back to the cycle. The other leads home. Helena Blavatsky spent her life preparing humanity for this. The Gnostics before her did the same. Now the knowledge is in your hands. What you do with it is up to you. But remember this, every soul that escapes weakens the prison for everyone else. Your liberation is not just personal, it's cosmic. You're not just saving yourself, you're helping dismantle the system. If you followed along this far, subscribe to the channel, leave your like and share in the comments what impacted you most in this journey. Your awakening matters, your sovereignty matters, and the truth can no longer be hidden. You are free. You've always been free. Now go remember.